Hi, I'm Sherry from Whole Circle Studio and welcome to week 8 of the Leaf Peepers Quilt Along. This week we're going to quilt block number 3, which I have right here. I'm going to use the same sort of techniques that I've used in block 1 and 2. I'm going to use my walking foot. I'm going to quilt using my seams as a guide, each different sort of section of the leaf. And here are my thread choices that I'm going to use that match along with my fabric. One thing I wanted to note, and I mentioned at the end of last week's video, of what to do once you quilt along the outer perimeter right next to the ditch. So if you quilt along and then you get back to the starting point, how do you get back over so that your quilting line's parallel? Let me review that one more time. So if I end here, what I'll do is then take my pin, and I'll demonstrate using, oh, here's my pin. Sorry, I lost that for a minute. So if I'm ending right here, what I'll do is I know that my edge of my walking foot to my needle is 3/8 of an inch. So I'll hold my ruler parallel to this edge, and I'll measure 3/8 of an inch. And then I'll also hold it parallel to this edge, and I actually got it pretty close. I might adjust it. And I'll just move the ruler back and forth until I'm 3/8 of an inch from this way and 3/8 of an inch from this way. Again, if your edge of your presser foot, your walking foot, is more than 3/8 or less, then that's the measurement you'll use. But like I said, mine is 3/8. So I'll use that as an indicator, and then I know that when my needle is down here, I'll just quilt to this line, and then again I can use the edge of that presser foot on the walking foot to just keep following that line parallel to where I had quilted, and I'll go all the way around. Let's get block number 3 quilted. So I have my long thread on my top and my bottom because I'm going to pull the thread up so that I can bury it later, just like I did in the previous blocks. And I'm going to quilt along the perimeter of this dark orange shape just to the right of the ditch. So let's get that done. Don't forget to take it slow and get these pins out as you go along. Also, just a reminder, make sure your needle is down when you pick up the presser foot. Before I come back to where I started, I'm going to make sure I get my bobbin thread tail up so that it's out of the way and I don't run it over, making a big mess. And I'll just keep that out of the way for now and I'll bury it later. Okay, I'm going to continue quilting along that shape. Again, 3/8 of an inch parallel to the line I just quilted. And one more time, I'm going to say it again. Why I'm picking 3/8 of an inch is that from my needle position to the edge of my walking foot is 3/8 of an inch. Yours might be different. So how I measure where I know to start so that it'll be parallel when I get around this edge and it's parallel to that line, quilted line from here, is I'll take my ruler and I'll keep it parallel to this quilted line. I'm going to move my needle, my pin, so that it's 3/8 of an inch. And then from the edge, that quilted line in, that's 3/8. And I've gotten pretty good. The more you do this, the more you'll be able to estimate it and eyeball it. So that's 3/8. So again, 3/8 of an inch from this quilted line to here and this quilted line from here, and that way I can just use this edge as a guide. So I'm just going to quilt to where that pin is going into the fabric, again being very careful not to run it over. Move it out of the way. And now when I rotate, voila! My edge of my walking foot is aligned with that quilted line, again because I know from here to here is 3/8 of an inch. Now I'm going to follow all the way around. And I can use my ruler, or I'm getting pretty good at eyeballing it. 3/8 of an inch, but again I would just use my ruler if I wasn't confident doing that. And again, I could measure it, but I got pretty close. That's a little bit off, so I'm just going to reposition it very carefully, making sure it looks parallel to where I was. Maybe one more stitch, and there, that's better, that alignment. And if this was a bigger section, I would do the same thing. I would rotate it and then use my ruler, but this is pretty tight, so I think this section for now is all quilted. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with all the other sections, and I'll be back in a little bit. So I completed quilting block 3. You can see it right here. And I like the way that this is coming out, this walking foot. I may decide later to go back and add some quilting in. I'm going to wait to see how everything starts to look together, and that's something I do pretty often. I also wanted to show you, I love using solid fabric or near solid fabric for the back. I just really love seeing all of the quilted lines, and it starts to take on a whole new feeling. So it's the leaf, but without the fabric. You could just see all that quilting and that detail coming up. So I hope you're enjoying quilting block 3. Next week we'll dive into block 4. Let's make something awesome.